Greetings. This is Paul the Poke from PaulthePoke.com. Take this time to welcome everybody to This Week in Prophecy. Actually, about the last week and a half. So, on this edition, we have Israel exports oil for the first time, another Turkey earthquake, Marburg virus, UFO, sort of, whatever, Russia, and revival. And we're going to start. Israel has become a member of the quote, the Club of International Oil Exporters. And that's according to Mathios Rigas, CEO of Energean. The oil is from the Karish field in the Mediterranean Sea. Take you first of all to a link here, oilprice.com, latest energy news, world news. Israel set to export its first ever crude oil. Also, while we're going to get to Turkey here in a second in regards to earthquakes, but we're talking about the Karish oil field is out in this area. And the reason the Karish is kind of interesting because there's a dispute as to who it belongs to, whether it belongs to Lebanon, whether it belongs to Israel. We had some sort of a little agreement, and everybody's going to get a little piece of the pie there. As far as, in dispute was what is the international line? What is international waters that belong to Israel? What belongs to Lebanon? They reached somewhat of an agreement. Well, Israel is already drilling, refining oil, and distributing to Western Europe. And so we get that from oilprice.com. Checkmates turned me onto this website. It's great. All things oil, if you're interested in it. Covers price depending on what type of crude we're talking about or what kind of oil we're talking about. Prices of oil. Israel's set to export its first ever crude oil cargo. This was according to Financial Times, is where this story was picked up. Crude oil tanker Sealiger, an Aframax, capacity to carry 700,000 barrels of crude. Tracked by satellites close to the Karish on Sunday, loaded crude from the unit, and off we went. So they are now exporting oil. How about that? Makes life interesting. From that standpoint, here's the bait: Gog of Magog, Prince of Rosh. And the reason they're going to invade, that's Ezekiel 38's prophecy in regards to Russia and friends decide to invade Israel from the north. It's for economic reasons. Ezekiel 38, 13b. Have you come to take plunder? Have you gathered your army to take booty, to carry away silver and gold, to take away livestock and goods, to take great plunder? Well, I'm of the opinion the great plunder is all this oil and gas out here off the coast of Israel in the Mediterranean Sea. And that's what they're interested in. And it's all for economic reasons, which, while we're talking about this, and if you read a little bit further, Sheba, Dedan, Tarshish, modern day Saudi Arabia, the Arabian Peninsula, Tarshish loosely, I think you can make an argument. Some people say it's Spain, some people say it's England, Western Europe. They just stand and watch, and it just makes me wonder what's going to happen because Russia's not getting much of an upper hand right now with this thing going on in Ukraine. I just wonder if we're not going to see a big event that at some point Russia's going to do something in Ukraine where the rest of the world just kind of stands there and freezes and allows Russia to walk in here and just say, hey, we're going to take this, and there's not anything you're going to do about it. And it's to the point that only God can intervene. So I wonder, if this is the time, are we on the cusp of seeing a dramatic turn of what's taking place between Russia and Ukraine, and Russia asserts itself and does something big? We know how it ends, but the twists and turns and how we get there, that could be interesting. I mean, it could even be something as As crazy as it sounds, something may happen to Putin. The person who takes over is, the way the world's going is likely to be a little bit more fundamental, more assertive, because I guarantee you, he's hearing voices from within Russia who want him to be way more proactive than what he's being, and to quit messing around and do something big. And so just a little something to think about. We're going to transition a little further south. And here's the earthquake activity since all this started about 2-3 weeks ago now, in and around Turkey, getting down to the Turkey Syria border. The latest, we've had another earthquake. And we take a look at this verse here from Luke 21 verse 11. There will be great earthquakes, which we're seeing, and a lot of these are frankly shifting toward the Middle East in areas that are prophetically significant in the end time scenario. And in various places, famines and pestilences. And there will be terrors and great signs from heaven. So, as of February 20, another 6.4 significant earthquake has struck Turkey. This time the location was Antakya, Turkey, which again is close to the border with Lebanon, west of Aleppo, Syria, and it's north of Latakia, Syria, which is home to a Russian naval base and Russian troops. Now, tsunami warnings were issued in the Mediterranean. Tidal wave damage was not reported. Give you a little bit better feel. Here's on Antakya, Turkey, right here. I mean, it's just barely into. It's barely in Turkey. And again, here's Aleppo, Syria, to the east, and we go down here to Latakia, Syria. And again, Russia has a seaport in Latakia and troops stationed in Latakia. It's one of the first places when they moved in. September, October 2015. Latakia was one of their first bases. So, isn't it interesting that all this action going on with the earthquakes, Ezekiel 38:39, Jeremiah 49, Isaiah, burden of Damascus, we got plenty going on in this same area. So, definitely want to keep an eye on it. Emergency teams are on alert and responding to reports of casualties under the rubble of destroyed buildings in Antakya after a 6.4 earthquake hit the border region between Turkey and Syria. Now, this is from Middle East Eye. Just click on the link if you want to see the video. We're not going to cover that here this evening. And just to kind of wrap up, according to multiple news outlets, and this was as a couple of days ago when I'd put this up, had some things take place, couldn't get to it until tonight, but 47,000 people in Turkey and Syria have died from the series of earthquakes in the region. And the data would suggest over 7,000 aftershocks since that's happened. Crazy stuff over the last 3 weeks in that part of the world. So, and we'll transition from earthquakes in Turkey to the World Health Organization, the WHO, quietly called an emergency meeting regarding an outbreak of Marburg virus in Equatorial Guinea. Now, the concern is the virus has spread to Ghana, and we will back out and we will head to Equatorial Guinea and get me to Ghana. Whoops, my bad. Now, which is kind of interesting. Here's Equatorial Guinea, and they've got concerns about this spreading to Ghana. And I've even seen some stuff maybe in Cameroon. But anyhow, we'll back this out. This is where we're looking at in Africa. Zero back in. Let's get all of these. And then let's talk a little bit for those of you who are not familiar with Marburg virus. It's kind of like Ebola. An Ebola-like virus killed 9 people, Equatorial Guinea. There really are no treatments or vaccines to this thing. And I mean, this thing means business. Hemorrhagic fevers. So, bleeding. You get it. You get the virus. Marburg spreads from person to person via direct contact through broken skin or mucous membranes with the blood secretions, organs of other bodily fluids of infected people. Surface materials like bedding clothing contaminated with these fluids. And I want to say the mortality rate is around 90%, 88 to 90%. And you're usually dead within about 8 days of contracting this thing. You have to be very careful burying the dead because you can get it from dead people, which kind of like the Bible says. Don't touch dead people. Well, it's because of infection. That's funny how, the WHO making a big statement during COVID out front, sponsored primarily by China, or not. That's actually not a fair statement. Uh, heavily influenced by China. COVID-19, drum up all kinds of excitement. And we got something here that's really bad, and kills people. Like, again, death mortality rate around 88-90%. Nobody wants to talk about this one. I find that kind of curious. They're talking about no vaccines, vaccine this, vaccine that. How about you just isolate, keep people away? Bad stuff. And again, Africa braces against Marburg virus after Ghana cases. And then we also had things in Equatorial Guinea. So somehow somebody got over there and spread something to Ghana. So definitely pay attention to things related to Marburg. And the people just bleed through the nose, bleed through the eyes, bleed out the ears. Gruesome, hard death with this stuff. Want to pay attention. Here's the link for this. Of course, it's gavi.org. Vaccines work. Okay. Some of them, yeah. Some of them don't. That's also true. Going to transition from Marburg to the search for alleged UFO debris has been called off. And here is the official tweet as put out on Twitter by U.S. Northern Command. U.S. Northcom recovery operations update on airborne objects. And just look at this. Yes, this is the official tweet Northern Command put out. They hadn't saved it or edited it. Their official final document, and nothing but the best from our government. I mean, I'm sorry. This is just a half-assed effort, and it's embarrassing. And these people wonder why nobody trusts them. But I will read this. U.S. Northern Command recommended that search operations conclude today near Dead Horse, Alaska, and on Lake Huron, as search activities have discovered no debris from airborne objects shot down, allegedly, on February 10 and February 12, 2023. U.S. military, federal agencies, Canadian partners conducted systematic searches of each area using a variety of capabilities, including airborne imagery, sensors, surface sensors, inspections, subsurface scans, and did not locate debris. Secretary of Defense concurred with the recommendation. Now, we had no problem finding all kinds of stuff when we shot that balloon down off the coast of the Atlantic that was Chinese. And let's not forget, everybody thought this thing was the real deal. Because we had this, what was it, February 10, February 12. We had a post on that. UFO over Alaska, UFO over Canada, UFOs appears over China, UFO shot over Lake Huron. I mean, all kinds of people talking about it. intelligence. You had F-22 pilots making comments, interfered with sensors. They could see no propulsion system on the aircraft, not knowing how it could possibly be staying in the air. Quotes, intel. U.S. Air Force General Glenn Van Herk had made comments on it. Department of Defense made comments on it. Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, was talking. We had Congress people from Montana quoting Norcom, hey, there's something out there. You know, I think he's an ex-Marine pilot. She's ex-CIA. She was talking about it over the Great Lakes. Bergman, maybe he was the ex-Marine pilot. Anyway, we had very credible people talking about, hey, we're seeing something. Uruguay Air Force released something as well from February 11th that they'd seen something on Friday the 10th. You had all kinds of credible people saying, hey, we really got something up there. You know, word comes out, we fired a missile. First one we missed with a $400,000 missile, but the second one got him, allegedly. And then now we can't find any debris. Well, I'm sorry, when you do stuff like this and you got all these people coming out and then you say you can't find anything, I'm of the opinion, and this is what happens when you don't find stuff. You leave people like me and many others to start shaping and forming their own opinions. I don't think you hit it. I don't think you had the capability to hit whatever was up there. And I think you're just saying that we hit it just to kind of have a little feel good to make everybody feel calm about it. Yeah, we're big and bad and we shot this thing down. Maybe this thing evaded you and you didn't have an answer. Just one ball guy's opinion. Interesting stuff. So I'm sure something will come out later and dismiss this even further. Get some more time to go by. You know, and then they don't help themselves when they put these things out, these press releases. They do them late in the evenings or overnight when we're sleeping. You know, they try to hide it under the cloak of darkness, like nobody's going to be paying attention. Okay, whatever. But isn't that interesting? We couldn't find anything, but we allegedly shot it down. I don't think you shot it down. I think you missed, and I think it got away. And I think you're storytelling. Just one person's opinion. Take it or leave it. Give me some evidence. So we'll transition from UFOs, allegedly. Some people think they may not even been there, but I don't buy that. There's too many people talking about it. Way too many people talking about it. And we'll transition to Lebanon. Zechariah 11, verse 1. Open your doors, O Lebanon, that the fire may devour your cedars. And so when you look at what ultimately goes down in Lebanon, Lebanon goes up in smoke and fire, and a lot of their big trees are burned down. That's what the Bible says about Lebanon. I think there are 4 or 5 verses. You can look those up. Here's one of them, Zechariah 11, verse 1. We're going to take a look at their currency. Despite government intervention within the last week or two to strengthen the Lebanese currency, the lira continues to crash. The lira continued to decline against the dollar. $1 is worth roughly 80,000 lira. So hyperinflation continues to climb. Now, the problem is the government said, nope, we're going to cut this thing back to about 15,000 lira to $1, and that's how we're going to tackle inflation. The reality of the situation on the ground is that didn't help and it didn't work, and the value of the lira continued to plummet. And then, you know, what's left of the Lebanese government decided to pass a new law, and banks have been closed until further notice. So people are unable to get to their money, and guess what they're doing? They're responding. They are setting banks on fire. And this is from Al Monitor. Banks burn in Lebanon as exchange rate falls to historic low. Banks were already on strike, and the government's interventions have failed to alleviate the economic crisis. So, seems reasonable. Let's set the banks on fire. You can read this. This is again from almonitor.com. Banks burn, Lebanon exchange rate falls to historic low. And you can read this. They also do have some tweets showing different banks going up in flames, setting ATM machines on fire. What it means things have gotten crazy expensive. Inflation, gee whiz, 2-3 times what it was a year ago. So imagine going to the, say gas was 250, it'd be 750 to a gallon or so, which I'm sure it's way more than that in that part of the world. Lots of issues, hyperinflation north on Israel's doorstep. So continue to watch that. We're going to come back around to Ezekiel 38 verses 1 and 2. Now the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh, Meshach, and Tubal, and prophesy against him. So we're talking about a leader who is a leader of ancient Magog, or as the Greeks would call them, the Scythians, prince of Rosh. The Russians claim to be ancient Scythians. We're talking about modern day Russians. And President Vladimir Putin gave a big speech this week marking the 1-year anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine. He, of course, blamed the West and talked for quite a while. But the problem was we had some hackers disrupt the televised event, and the public in Russia had blank TV screens across 11 time zones. And with that, we'll go to dailymail.co.uk. Putin's speech is blacked out by major hack. Online state TV during his State of the Union address with the message on blank screens blaming technical works. So he was talking to Russia's parliament. And again, he blamed the West for him invading Ukraine. You guys want to get into the details of this? Got a link provided on the... That's what the screens look like on TV right there. That's what it showed. Mistake 500, and that technical works were underway. So this was showing all across Russia while he was supposed to be talking to the people. We got pictures of him. He's talking. Says the West has limitless power. Just doesn't seem like it's reasonable. Putin accuses West of starting war in Ukraine during State of the Nation. Now, for those of you who want to get into all the details, I have a link provided for that as well. It's from thekremlin.ru, and you can read the entire speech. I'm not going to break the speech down here. If you guys want to spend the time to do that, I'll provide the link and you guys can read it. This speech went on for close to 2 hours. That's a lot of reading. He did a lot of talking. And really the one thing that did come out of it, Putin indicated Russia will no longer participate in the New START nuclear treaty. Now, that was something that took place during, I think it was Obama. Here's the quote from Putin. They want to inflict a strategic defeat on us and claim our nuclear facilities. In this regard, I am forced to state that Russia is suspending its participation in the Strategic Offensive Arms Treaty. And here's the details on that from The Guardian. There's an article I found on it. If it'll come up. Whoops, there we go. Putin says Russia will halt participation in the New START nuclear arms treaty. Aired his grievances against the West. Again, the first anniversary. They've been fighting in Ukraine now for close to a year. Again, if you want to read this, feel free to read it. But the reality of it is he ripped up a treaty. We're not participating anymore. Now, while that was going on, allegedly, United States believes Russia had failed intercontinental ballistic missile test around when Biden was in Ukraine. This is from CNN. This has not been confirmed by Russia. This is something that kind of leaked out of the United States. And it was the, quote, Sarmat missile, nicknamed the Satan II missile. Of course, coming from Russia, therefore it must be from Satan. Apparently, they were doing some sort of testing during the time of this, or in and around the time of Biden being in the Ukraine, because Biden shows up in the Ukraine, skips around while they have sirens blaring. Him and Zelensky are out, a little bromance, walking around the streets. Putin talks the next day. It's a little fuzzy, unclear as to when they tried to fire this missile, if they fired the missile, and it was declared to be unsuccessful. Now, who knows what the truth of it is? You got all kinds of propaganda on both sides of this. Now, for those of you not familiar with the Sarmat or Satan II missile, it has the ability to deliver multiple nuclear weapons. So fire one missile, one ICBM into the air, reaches a point, and then can fire multiple missiles or multiple weapons from the one big missile. Missile has a range of 6,835 miles with a 100-ton payload system, so it can carry a lot of stuff. Test results have offered mixed reviews, allegedly. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, according to people who study these sorts of things. So I don't know. Depends on who you listen to. I suppose I don't want one of these fired over the United States. I don't think that's a good idea. Something blows up in the sky, we have an EMP, or somebody takes a direct hit with a, quote, tactical nuclear weapon. Even a, quote, tactical weapon, 25 to 50 mile radius of one of these things from ground zero, and you're just done, and you're pretty much vaporized. So we're getting awfully loose and free with the term nuclear on both sides, and this whole thing seems to be escalating, and it would appear we're on the verge of heading towards something more significant. Neither side's backing down with the rhetoric. If anything, they're trying to outdo the other. Oh yeah, well, I can talk tougher. And at some point, somebody's hand gets called, and then things get real scary. Because, ultimately your manhood gets called into question. Then you got to do something. So, scary times. We're going to close with Mark 16, verse 15. And he said to them, that'd be Jesus, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. Lots of talk about revival going on around the United States. And there's always, I've heard many people talk about, before Jesus comes, there's going to be a big revival. Those who truly believe will mount up one last stand before the Lord comes. Well, okay. So is this real? I don't know. Time will tell. I mean, you hope this is real. You hope people are really turning to Christ. You hope hearts are softening, and we legitimately turn to our fellow man and love our neighbor. Well, more importantly, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. First of all, turn to Christ. He died for our sin. He is the author of our salvation, our redemption. Because you look around the world, we know the world needs it. But this started at a Methodist church in Wilmore, Kentucky. And as of a couple of days ago, spread around to Cedarville University in Ohio, Lee University in Tennessee, Samford University in Alabama, Baylor, Texas A&M, And the movement appears to be spreading across university campi in the United States. I mean, there were even people carrying signs for Jesus on Santa Monica Beach in California. Holy cow. Got believers in California. How about that? 50,000 people flocked to Kentucky town over 13 days for this revival. You can click on some of these different links. Christian University draws pilgrims nationwide. Spreading. This is what I saw. You got people making comments about it. There's the Fox News app if you're interested. And then also, this is a tweet. Malachi O'Brien. Revival has consumed the city of Wilmore. I'm praying that cities across America are captured with the beauty of Jesus. What city do you want to see Jesus so great and mighty? What city do you want to see Jesus so great and mighty things? That's okay. Here's a little overview. Just going through the town with drone imaging. And again, 50,000 people over almost 2 weeks' time. So they say this one's out of Kansas City. And I know there's some stuff in Park Hill, which is in the Northland. I don't know if this is footage from Park Hill or if this is footage from Kentucky. I don't recognize any of these landmarks from what would be north of the river in Kansas City. I'm assuming this is from Kentucky and Asbury Methodist Church. So interesting times. So if you really want to check out some more of that, just hashtag Asbury Revival or hashtag Revival Generation. All kinds of videos, pictures, comments on Twitter. And it just makes me wonder, are we watching the last call? Last call for Jesus, last call to accept him as the Lamb of God, the suffering servant who died for our sins. When he comes back, he's coming back as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And, better to meet him as the Lamb instead of the Lion. So, appreciate you guys following along today. If you enjoyed this, please feel free to share with others at PaulthePoke.com. And, depending on what type of information, content you're interested in, here's some of the categories that are covered since 2010. And if you're not a subscriber, type in your email address here, hit subscribe. You'll receive a notification every time we put something out. We got Purim coming up in about a week and a half or so, 2 weeks. And spring feasts are right around the corner. And for those of you who follow along, current events tend to gain some steam when we hit the feasts. So spring feasts coming up, a little over a month or so. And appreciate you following along. Have a great one. Take care. Bye.